Hi, I'm Mike Clayson.
I'm Walter Von Hune, and we're here today to talk about our HOA and being a board member and being a part of the board that runs our whole association. And Mike is a part of our board, and I'm going to be asking him some questions about what it's like being a board member, some of the responsibilities, and things like that. And the first question I have, were you ever a member of another board of an HOA to be a board member?
Yeah, not an HOA. I was on another board, on a water board,
Uh-huh.
but not an HOA.
Uh-huh. What made you then decide to run for the board here? We live in a community called Jubilee in Washington. We have about 1,440 homes in our HOA. And so what made you want to be a board member?
Well, two things. And what I ran on was, number one, the community was in the process of switching over from self-management to a professional management company. And the second thing was that they were also in the midst of a large remodel of their main assembly room called the St. Helens Room. And so I thought that I could help with my background to help with the transition into a professional management company. And I also thought with my construction litigation background that I could help bring some focus and some organization to the St. Helens Room remodel.
So you feel that because you were part of the legal community, and that's part of the consideration, I would think, of being a board member to understand, quote, because there's a lot of legal ramifications that you go through and you need to be aware of. So that obviously helped you then be a board member.
Right. I mean, I'm a retired lawyer. I don't practice law anymore, and I'm certainly not licensed to practice in the state of Washington. And fortunately, the board has their own legal counsel, but having a legal background has been extremely helpful to me in wading through some of these issues.
What are some of the common challenges that you face as a board member?
Well, like I said, the transition from self-governance to a professional management company has been, it's difficult, it's complex. So that's the first one.
Uh-huh.
Then we are moving forward with refreshment of the St. Helens Room. It's not to the extent and scope that certain groups in our community wanted. They wanted to extend the room out 14 feet and relocate the stage and make it bigger and do some lighting. And it was over $1 million by the time we were done. So that was voted down by the community, but we are still moving forward with, a new stage and refinishing the dance floor and new carpeting and new baseboards and just making it really nice. So we are working on that.
Yeah, the St. Helens Room is a room we have here where we have concerts, we have plays, we have different things going on. It's the biggest room in our lodge, and so this came up about a couple of years ago, I would think, that people wanted to extend the room and make it bigger, but there were a lot of problems and ramifications that went into that. And I know you inherited that problem from the previous board because they had come up with a number that they said the cost will not go over this number, and the next thing we knew, it was double the price.
That was one person who said that, and it was not something I don't think anybody with good faith took seriously. But and the idea of making a bigger venue for our performing people, because there's quite a few people in the community that have various entertainment talents, and to make something nice for them, I think the idea of it has been going on for at least a decade. But the way it was done, the way the process was moved forward before I got there was extremely divisive, and it really drove a wedge into the community. So ultimately, the community voted down that plan, and like I said, we're doing a more modest refresh of the room. But I think it's going to be nice. I think it's going to be useful for most people.
I think it will be too. I think it went to a vote of the entire Jubilee residents here, every member of every household, I should say, of the HOA association. And after the costs rose to what they did, the whole membership voted it down. Not the whole membership, there were people who wanted it, but the majority voted it down. But I think today, as I've talked to different people within the homeowners group, there are still disagreements about, oh, we should have had this, we should have done that, we should have done this. How do you, as a board member, handle all these different disagreements from the different sides that come to the board, and they sit there at the board meeting?
Yeah, and there is a group of people that are still extremely angry, and very vocal, and it's been difficult to deal with them because they say things that aren't true, or they exaggerate things that are, and they're not helping. They're not helping the community, that's for sure. But they're just so angry. It is difficult to deal with this group, or any group really that wants to be disruptive. But we have opportunities for everyone to speak at our board meetings. We do everything out in the open. Our board, fortunately, has been good. We haven't really had any internal strife to speak of. So we move as a group, which is good. And we try and do the best we can for the entire community, because the reality is that as a board member, I'm not focused so much on individual interest groups so much as I am about my fiduciary responsibility to the whole community, to do what's right for the whole community, to do everything that I can to make sure that our dues are paying for things that we need, and that they're not overly high, and that we control the costs as much as we can, and we do things that benefit the community generally, not just the special groups that are very vocal.
Yeah, one of the things that you said there that I find interesting is I've been to some of those board meetings myself and listened, and it seems that a lot of the people who go to these board meetings talk about their own individual problem. This is happening in my house. They didn't cut the grass right. And because we have a gardening service, that landscaping service that comes out and does our front lawns and takes care of things. But individuals just talk about their property. My flowers were cut and this and that, versus the whole. And, if you're thinking about a board, you're talking about the entire community that you're talking about. And so that would seem to be a problem. And the other thing that, having gone to these meetings, that I hear are people who just go on and on and on and talk. And the one board meeting that I was at, and one lady got up and was talking and talking and talking. And I could see all the other people who were there were just yawning. And then finally she left the microphone, took about 10 steps, and came back and started talking again. And there was one guy in the audience who yelled out, "Time!" and finally said, "Oh, okay." But
I don't remember that. People are they're very emotional, and they feel very strongly about their issues. And we do everything we can as a board to let folks speak and speak their mind and get things off their chest. We do what we can. It sometimes can run long. Our last meeting, the entire meeting was about an hour and a half, and of that hour and a half, almost an hour was just public comment.
And how many more people were waiting to speak before you had to cut it off?
It is, but it's a fine line between trying to run an orderly meeting and get things done, and at the same time make sure that people have a chance to voice their opinions. One of the things that we're struggling with right now is that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but there's a group in our community really feels like the board, you talk about controlling things, that the board is being arbitrary about some of the decisions it's making. Most especially right now, it has to do with the use of the lodge, and also it's bleeding into like the use of the pavilion. And we've discovered, and the way this whole thing started is because HPCA wanted to use the lodge for a lot of meetings. They wanted, I don't exactly.
You have to explain HPCA.
So HPCA is our Hawks Prairie Community Association,
yeah.
HPCA, and they're the we used to call the Master Association. That's not what we use anymore, but it's the main association for our community. And then the Jubilee Community Association is a subpart of the HPCA. So the HPCA wanted to use. We had an agreement in place that allowed HPCA to conduct some of their meetings at the lodge, but then the HPCA wanted to do a lot more meetings, and that caused the board to say, wait a second. So we started looking at what they wanted versus what we were actually allowed to do by our charter, by our operating documents, and we realized that really, even though there was an agreement in place that could be ended by either party, with notice, that even though there was an agreement in place, we don't have the authority to allow that to happen because we are a private community association and we are exempt from a lot of more restrictive requirements for access for Americans with Disability Act access, from certain types of liability, and if we allow people who are not members of our community of the JCA to come in and use our facilities, we run the risk, a very substantial risk, of losing those protections. And so as part of our responsibilities as board members, as our fiduciary duty to our community, we have to say, no, we can't do this. We just can't do it. Our documents don't allow it, and we are putting our community at risk by doing that. And so that's caused us to push back against the HPCA for their request for meetings. And now it's come up about who can, that's a hummingbird, who can come to for instance, our food truck events and our other social events and our community sales and that sort of thing. In the past, it's been more casual, but the reality is our governing documents don't allow it. And now that these issues have come to the fore, we really have to take a position that says that we just can't allow outsiders to come in unless they are tenants or guests of our residents. And so that's what's happening. But people are starting to, they're making these claims about how the board is acting arbitrarily and in bad faith or with a personal vendetta. It's simply not true. There are very good legal reasons for doing what we're doing, and we are following the advice of our counsel.
I imagine that, in no matter what group you have or what association you have, you're always going to have disagreements, and you're always going to have people on different sides on the issues that affect the board and the community. What is the best way to, even if you explain and to the people, there still are people who are going to say, well, change that then and make it the way I want it.
Right. And they certainly can. I mean, if the broader community thinks that that's a good idea, that they think that, okay, let's open up our facilities more so that more people can come when we invite them to community events, to food trucks, to dances, whatever, they certainly can do that. But it's going to require a change in our governing documents. It's going to require a vote of our community.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
And it is going to change things. We are then going to be responsible for complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act and all those requirements, other accessibility laws. It opens us up to more liability as outsiders come in. So there are significant, expensive downsides to doing that, along with the upsides of having more participation.
Final question to you, Mike. What do you think is the most important function of being a board member? And what do you think is the most important thing?
Well, as I said earlier, the board and the board members have a fiduciary duty, a legal fiduciary duty to protect the organization and to act in the best interests of the entire community, through the organization. So we do that by making sure that we get good contracts, best we can, that we follow the rules so that we don't get sued as best we can.
Yeah.
And that we listen to our residents, and we try and react to what their complaints are. But again, we also have to resist special interests who have a focus on one issue over everything else, and we have to say, look, I understand why you want that, but this is not something that's good for our entire community. So we have to say no. So those are the things that we have to do, and then coordinate vendors, coordinate with our management, our professional management company. It's a big job. It's a very big job, and we are volunteers. We are residents. We are retirees, just like everybody else here. And my term goes 2 years. There are two people, actually 3 people up for re-election this year, and they can be voted out, and we'll end up with 3 more new people, which is whatever, it's however people decide. But people should not think that this is not a hard job. It's an extremely hard job.
I was the president of an HOA in a place I lived, and there were not as many as here. We only had like maybe 150 or something homes within the community, and it is not an easy job, and I commend you for doing it and trying to bring people together instead of keeping people in their own separate camps. And I know there are disagreements, and being a board member is not easy, and anyone who lives in a HOA community, believe me, it is not easy to try to run on the board of directors in that community. But hey, thank you for listening. We just wanted to bring you a little up to date on our board and what a board of directors does in a community. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Walter. I hope I wasn't too whiny. I'll talk to you soon.
I'll let you know.